Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Corner. Cue the music. So recently I've watched Death Race. Death Race was released in 2008 and at the time I was 13 years old and I couldn't go to the cinema to fucking well see it. I was one of those pudgy kids, who looked younger than he actually was. I think I looked around about 8 when I was 13. I mean, if I shave my facial hair now, I can't even pass for 15. Anyway, I have crashed of course. When I watched this on DVD, I loved it. I fell in love with it. I just loved the action, the grit, the style. Also, it was everything that Fast and Furious wasn't. It was violent. It was entertaining. And yeah, it's just got edge. It is a war movie, but with cars. It's a very simple premise. You basically drive and kill to survive and to amount, good enough numbers, good enough viewings, good enough ratings from the general public, and you can gain your freedom. You have to suspend disbelief, as with all these movies, but it's just a special film because the action, the stunts, the choreography, it's just a sensation. And it was this film that introduced me to Paul W.S. Anderson, who I have a great affection for, a great appreciation for. And Paul W.S. Anderson is a director I've always loved. I love his movies because they're populist, they're energetic, they're dynamic, they're mental. Yeah, some of the writing's piss poor, but he's a populist. He makes movies to entertain, and he so much archetypalizes and typifies this populist sensationalization that, he's an artist in and of himself. He's a uber nerd, and though he's more notorious and loathed for being the guy who destroys video game adaptations, I love his work.
Leave him alone!
There's an energy. There's an edge. And you know what? Listening to a Paul W.S. Anderson audio commentary, it's brilliant because he literally sounds like an English professor, but instead of waxing lyrical about philosophy, it's philosophy of entertainment and video games and the narrative of action cinema. So Death Race is originally based upon Death Race 2000, a Roger Corman produced cheapo action film. I haven't watched it. My inclination towards Roger Corman films is relatively low, even though I'm someone of whom loves the work of Herschel Gordon Lewis and B movies. There's something about Corman that just doesn't appeal to me, but I can understand the appeal to Paul W.S. Anderson. What ample opportunity to take this very simplistic premise and ratchet it up, have a budget thrown at it. Sadly, the future of the Death Race series in its modern form has been direct-to-DVD fodder, and I love myself some DTV films, but those movies, they're not good. They're not good. They need someone like Jesse V. Johnson to come in and save it. But Paul, he produces them, he writes them, he's part of the creative team behind them, but they just don't have the budget behind it like they did with this one. I'm still amazed that this film got greenlit, because at this time the market for a Fast and Furious style film was very minimal. I mean, Tokyo Drift drifted away from the cinemas with hardly any cash in their wallets. There wasn't an impressive thing on a box office level, but what's different and sets it out is the aesthetic. It's lit and filmed like a Ridley Scott war movie. I like the cinematography, the lighting, the practicalities, and the ferocity. And the fucking film is, led by Statham doing his Statham thing. He whispers a lot. He's very quiet. He's menacing. Ian McShane is fucking chewing the scenery, eating it, fucking passing it through his actually arse. Yeah, I love it. The score by Paul Haslinger is really impressive. There's some editorial flourishes that have aged awfully. You know, that very frenetic colour burn, Tony Scott transition tree type thing they do with the edit and the colour grading and all such. It's so saturated and dirty and filthy. I like it, and it suits this narrative. It suits this vehicular carnage extravaganza, Big Brother styled reality TV action film. But I love it. I really fucking love it. And if you like fast-paced action films with actually a relatively interesting narrative, and you know, Paul W.S. Anderson can take very simple premises and elongate them and stretch them into like 100-minute, you know, action extravaganzas, and it is impressive for that reason. And I got to give it a wholehearted 4 stars. It's entertaining, and guess what, guys? If you don't agree, it's okay to dislike things, but it's also okay to like things as well.
Okay to like things.
Bullshit artist, 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 I call bullshit on that.